Welcome back to the channel and another Club 100 karting video. This is the second round of the Heavyweight Experience Championship from Bayford Meadows. After my various mistakes in round one, I was hoping for something less eventful, but I've always struggled with the technical nature of the infield section of this track, so would today be any different? In the practice session, I actually managed a quite respectable 20th overall and was the third fastest super heavyweight, which was good, but unfortunately those times don't count for anything. We have a 15-minute session, 10 minutes of practice, 5 minutes of qualifying. In the qualifying part of it, I was slower than practice and actually dropped a few tenths off my fastest time, which left me 22nd on the grid. Not disastrous by any stretch of the imagination, but slightly frustrating to have been quicker and not really been able to capitalise on that in qualifying. So, on to race one. I'm starting on the outside of the grid, just behind Tim Randall, who was the winner of the previous round, so, not so bad. The formation lap at Bayford, we kind of use an oval, so it's a nice even start. There's no sharp turns before the start, so it's reasonably good. So we're now coming up to start finish line, pace starts to pick up, and it's a reasonably even start, not too bad. Coming up into turn one, there's a little bit of contact in front there, and then sort of a gap opens up. And you can see there's a massive gap now on the outside, so I just send it all the way around the outside, turn two, and the first hairpin, which puts me on the inside of the next hairpin. Someone's been flying off from the grass there. And we've got the inevitable spinner as well on the first lap. So overall, not too bad. I start, make the wrong decision here, get a bit held up. You can see Tim in the white and black suit manages to go on the inside and kind of pulls up in front of me. But it's not too bad. We can now get our head down and start trying to make a bit of progress. Hopefully, the first half of the lap is usually a bit frantic, calm down a bit, just move forward with a bit of luck. So coming out, close out lap one, I've actually managed to make up 3 places, which doesn't seem like a lot given the drama that was happening in front of us, but it's okay. So coming in through lap 2, now coming into the more technical section of the track, you can see Tim's sort of gapped me a little bit. We've got one of the recovering drivers come past, but regardless, someone slipped through. There, not ideal. But yeah, you can see now Tim, and in fact this driver as well, just come past me, has gapped me quite considerably through that more technical part of the track. But now we're coming to the faster piece around the boot, heading into the final corner. You can see I'm reasonably strong through here. In fact, for about 2/3 of the lap, I'm reasonably good with those around me. You know, they're not really pulling away hugely. I'm quite strong through the last corner. Again, you can see here, reasonably strong through turn 1 as well, and then into the first hairpin. It's kind of after that, the section after the second hairpin, really, where I seem to struggle. So this guy's going to make a move on Tim, pushes him wide. That's quite useful for me. They're battling away, means they haven't moved off, disappeared. They're not working together, so I've closed right back up again, which is no bad thing. So these two aren't really breaking away from me, but I'm also not really closing up particularly well. We've got a car coming through on the inside. I think that's Stephen Jennings, who was one of the spinners on lap 1. He's recovering from that incident. He did go on to set the fastest lap of the race, so I'm too disappointed about being overtaken by him. And as you can see here, he makes short work of the guys in front. He's literally made up 2 or 3 places in the space of only a couple of corners. Seems to be able to put the car wherever he wants, which is nice. I mean, he's only a heavyweight, so maybe he could be 10 kilos or more lighter than myself and Tim, for example, or even more than that. So maybe that helps. But anyway, I'm kind of closing back up again, so hopefully, we can capitalise on this and try and at least stay in contact with the guys in front. Another car come through. I think it's another person that's recovering from possibly an incident on lap 1. I managed to hold him off a bit through these corners, but then he's down the inside into the second hairpin, but doesn't make quite as rapid progress as the previous car. So yeah, he literally kind of gets past me and then he seems to stall a bit. He doesn't go much further, whereas the previous recovering driver has absolutely vanished, not visible at all anymore. But the long and short of it is, I've kind of lost a bit of time here. The gap's starting to grow. But let's see, maybe again, if we've got someone that's trying to push back through the field, quite often that can work to your advantage, because it's very difficult to tell in the heat of the race who's trying to overtake you. I mean, although super heavyweights, we have different coloured numbers. We have green numbers, the heavyweights have blue numbers, so you see a blue number coming up behind you and they're coming up behind you quickly, you can make a decision to not fight them, because that they're not in your class, so you potentially could let them through. And then there's a few drivers that, from experience, I know what their race suit, I know what their helmet looks like, so potentially if they're coming through and I know that they're massively quicker, or even later on in the race they're lapping me, I can choose when to let them past, because there's no point in fighting it. It doesn't gain me anything. Potentially, fighting hard with someone else always loses you time, so there's a decision to be made. Is it worth fighting for that position or not? So these guys, I guess they're not pulling away. Maybe I am beginning to get close up, but then you can see there's a car on the outside, now on the inside coming into the boot. This is Lee Barrow. So Lee started, I think, a place front of me on the grid. So I don't know what happened to him in the first few laps. Maybe he got held up or something, but he's managed to make his way back. So, you know, right now, I guess the best thing to do is follow him. If he's a little bit quicker than me, maybe he'll pull me up to those guys in front, who aren't miles away, but clearly the gap's grown a bit. So, at the moment, it seems reasonably even. He's not massively quicker than me through this section. But we'll see, can I make it work to my advantage or not? Again, you can see coming through that midfield section, he suddenly gapped me by quite a long way. I guess I kind of closed the gap, maybe braking, coming into the boot, and then out onto the faster part of the track. But certainly is that middle section. It's my nemesis. I'm not really able to. I'm just not quick enough through there. I think that's a simple answer. So you can spread out a bit in front. See the carts in front, a bit more spread out. I guess there's a bad exit out of T1. So I'm closing up again through the first hairpin. Definitely get a better exit there coming into the second hairpin. But yeah, it's just not worth trying to throw the cart down the inside there. He's always going to close that door. And now another cart has come past. This is one of the heavyweights. So yeah, it's fundamentally really not working out. I'm struggling for any pace. You can see Lee's now pulled away a reasonable gap. Tim is way off in the distance at this point. And it's kind of where I finished, really, to be honest. These two guys in front were battling. They never really got away from me, but then I never really got close enough to fight with them again. Gradually trying to keep it clean, get to the end of the race. You can see I'm kind of closing up here, but it's never ever close enough to actually try and make a pass. And let's say we're only lap 10, we ran to lap 31, 32 or something, so this literally was the first third of the race where I was fighting with people a bit, well, not too much, and then from there onwards I was pretty much driving my own race, watching them kind of disappear off into the distance a bit. So we're going to jump forward to later in the race where an incident where I get it wrong, coming to the last sequence of corners, go wide, get on a really rough piece of tarmac and really ring my bell. You can see I'm almost out of the seat there. Very, very uncomfortable, and really I was pretty sore after that. And then skipping ahead again, we're going to be on coming into lap 30, and I'm about to be overtaken, or I'm about to be lapped more correctly by Matt Horgan. And he's really, when we get into the central part of the lap, you can see where my struggles are. So I'm fairly even. He's not vanished coming out of turn 1, turn 2. But then when we come into the tricky technical section, you see he's already gapped me a bit here and there, and then literally the gap just widens through that second hairpin, and then coming through this corner, gap widens again, then we come onto the back straight, and you can see he's pulled a huge number of car lengths from me just in that sequence of corners when we were reasonably even coming through turn 1. So that pretty much sums up my struggles with Bayford Meadows. So on to race 2. So this time I'm starting on the inside rather than the outside as it was previously. But the field's actually quite, in terms of the super heavyweights, the field's quite close. the top 4 or 5 of us are all within a couple of places, a few places on the grid. So it's not a great start, a bit slow. This guy at the front here seems to fundamentally be a bit slow through turn 1, loses me there's quite a gap, but thankfully, because it's quite congested on lap 1, particularly through the infield section, I managed to kind of close back up on the gap, and I'm following people that I should be racing against, so it's not the end of the world. You can see there's still quite a bit of pushing and shoving in front of us, which definitely works to my advantage at the moment. But at least, thankfully, through this section it's a bit quieter. It's pretty much one line through here. You can't really go too wide through these fast sweeping corners, so you pretty much get your head down, try and make progress, and off we go. So again, it's pretty even, not too bad, not lost too much distance. There's not too much distance coming into turn 1, and the guy in the red decides to try and make a move. I'll be diplomatic and give him the benefit of the doubt, but it was a bit half-hearted. He wasn't fully alongside, and to be honest, that corner, it's quick. You are always going to be heading towards the apex from a slightly wider start. I mean, you turn in from almost where the pit lane is, and you're always going to be trying to head towards the apex. If he'd been fully alongside, I obviously wouldn't have turned in on him, but he wasn't. He was a bit late, and the door was always going to close, to be honest. But I think from memory, I think he does recover in a few laps, so it wasn't terrible, but certainly there really wasn't. The move wasn't over there, I don't think, in my opinion. So, having had that little bump coming into turn 1, can we manage to close back up again? You can see the carts in front aren't really pulling away. Things were a bit stretched, but I think they're closing up again through the lovely, exciting technical section of Bayford Meadows. But actually, we've got the first 5 or 6, I think it's 5 carts in super heavyweight, literally all within that small back straight there. So they haven't got away, and it's early days, but at least they haven't romped off into the distance. Perhaps we can have a better race 2 than we did in race 1. So, lap 3, again, not a huge gap in front. I'm closing up on the turn, closing up with the guy in front, through the first hairpin, quite even, coming down to the second hairpin. Yeah, it's all closing up reasonably well. You can see there's like 4 of us, reasonably distant of each other. Wayne Dunham, blue suit, just seen shot at the top. Genuinely quick guy, made the switch from heavyweights to super heavyweights because he's right on the cusp of the weight limit. I always knew he'd go well. I must admit, I thought he'd easily win here at Bayford, but he didn't. But also didn't vanish into the distance. I mean, I think at the first round at Shennington, maybe 8th or 9th overall, so I really was worried that he would literally just drive off into the distance, but didn't quite work out that way. Maybe he similarly doesn't quite go with Bayford, but anyway. Coming down to the hairpin, we've got a spinner in front of us, and for once I managed to actually avoid someone spinning and not decide to lock my brakes and spin off in sympathy, which was a nice change from Shennington. But at this point, you can see the guys in front, the gap is starting to extend. I mean, it's only lap 5, but I'm not closing up on them. And to be honest, this was pretty much how it finished. They drove off into the distance. I mean, they were always kind of visible. It wasn't that they were completely, it wasn't they were half a lap in front of me or something, but they were gradually pulling away a few tenths each lap. And I was never able really to close up. So, I mean, really, the positives, I suppose, is that I didn't make any dumb mistakes like I did in Shennington. But the negative was that I just really struggled for pace, apart from the practice session. The practice session was pretty much the best I felt all day. I just, that middle section, as I showed the lap behind Matt Horgan, I just never got on with it. And to be fair, it's been a problem every single time I've been at Bayford, and I haven't found a way to crack it. If I could unlock that section of the lap, I'd be in a much stronger position, but it's just haven't been able to work it out. And I think I struggled after that in the incident in race 1 where I basically gave myself a whiplash. I struggled, my neck was really struggling. You see my head is lolling around all over the place now. The head moves a bit normally, but it really seems to be much worse than it normally is. That doesn't help for all sorts of reasons. It's quite uncomfortable. Your head is obviously quite a weight. Your head weighs a few kilos plus a crash helmet, and that's weight that you are kind of shifting around in the car and probably not where you want it to be. But I mean, I think today, this particular day was a bit of an anomaly, having tweaked my neck in race 1, which is fundamentally a problem all the way through. But we will try harder in the next round. So thank you for watching. Next round is Buckmore Park, which, as I'm sure anyone watching this will know, is a physical track in a Club 100 car. There's a lot of elevation change. There's some quick corners that reasonable amount of G. It's a hard track to drive, particularly if it's warm. I mean, my first ever 30-minute race around Buckmore was in August, and it was hot, and I thought I was going to die. So hopefully it's good. I'd prefer it not to be wet. I've driven around Buckmore quite a lot in the wet, and that's not exactly much fun either. But hopefully it's dry, but not too hot. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all